Do you remember the actor Caroll O'Connor, probably best known for his role as Archie Bunker in All in the Family? But I learned a story about how he was behind the scenes and how he treated Rob Reiner, and it told me a lot about what kind of guy he actually was in real life.
For years, the tension was impossible to ignore. Behind the cameras and smiling interviews, he utterly hated Rob Reiner, and no one knew why. Rumors swirled, whispers spread, but the truth stayed buried. Fans assumed it was ego, money, or Hollywood drama as usual. But now, the real reason is finally coming out, and it's far more personal than anyone expected.
Most people come up to me after over 200 shows. They'll say, the scene I remember most is when you and Archie discussed how you put socks and shoes on.
What started as a professional partnership slowly turned into deep resentment, fueled by betrayal, power struggles, and one moment that changed everything. Join us in this video as we reveal the reason why Caroll O'Connor hated Rob Reiner. Number 6. A hatred that ran deep. Caroll O'Connor, the legendary actor forever known as Archie Bunker, was never shy about speaking his mind, especially when it came to people he disliked. And his feelings toward Rob Reiner, who played his on-screen son Michael "Meathead" Stivic on All in the Family, were intense and unmistakable. In interviews and private conversations, O'Connor openly admitted his contempt, once saying flatly, "I've never hated anyone as much as I hated Rob Reiner." This wasn't a brief clash or a bad week on set. It was a deep, long-lasting resentment that O'Connor later admitted followed him throughout the show's run. Unlike the usual creative tensions common in television, their conflict felt personal. O'Connor believed it stemmed from basic differences in personality, ego, and acting philosophy. He felt Reiner's attitude disrupted the teamwork that should have united the cast. According to O'Connor, Reiner approached his role with a sense of moral superiority, once explaining that Rob believed he was smarter than everyone else simply because he played the liberal son. O'Connor, who took great pride in his craft and authority on set, found that confidence grating. To him, it wasn't just about acting. It was Reiner's tone, his posture, and the silent judgment O'Connor felt that challenged his control over Archie Bunker's character. How far did O'Connor go to describe his resentment for Reiner? Let's find out. Number 5. Arrogance, distance, and a philosophical war. O'Connor often described Rob Reiner as arrogant and unbearable, insisting his behavior went far beyond normal creative disagreements and crossed into something deliberately provocative and disrespectful. To him, Reiner wasn't just challenging ideas. He was questioning O'Connor's professionalism and upsetting the balance of the entire cast and crew. The tension became impossible to ignore. Part of the hatred also came from how personal their relationship felt, or rather, how empty it was. While many actors bond on set through humor and shared struggles, O'Connor felt Reiner was distant and condescending. He later recalled, "There was never a moment when I felt like Rob was my friend. He was always trying to prove something, always competing for attention in ways I found exhausting." This constant pressure left O'Connor feeling isolated, forced to defend not only Archie Bunker but his own worth as an actor. Their on-set interactions were often tense and awkward, with long shooting days made worse by unspoken hostility and creative clashes. But the conflict went deeper than personality. There was a serious philosophical divide. O'Connor viewed Archie Bunker as a complex, layered character who required careful balance. Reiner's performance, however, leaned heavily into satire and ideology, which O'Connor felt reduced their scenes into moral lectures. He once said, "It wasn't about acting. It was about him trying to teach me a lesson every day about liberal versus conservative, right versus wrong. I'm an actor, not a preacher." This ideological friction made their scenes especially difficult, as O'Connor felt he had to work around Reiner's impulses while staying true to Archie's core. Still, his professionalism never slipped on camera. Even though he despised Reiner personally, he allowed that tension to fuel the realism of their performances. Ironically, that animosity may have strengthened the chemistry audiences loved, though O'Connor would have dismissed that idea entirely. In private, his opinion never softened. "I've worked with many people I couldn't stand," he once said, "but Rob topped them all." In the end, O'Connor's hatred of Reiner reflected his intense devotion to his craft and his refusal to tolerate anyone he believed undermined it. But how and where did the hatred for Rob Reiner start? Keep watching to find out. Number 4. When professional respect broke down. Many people have long believed Caroll O'Connor and Rob Reiner were close friends, trusted co-workers who grew together over years of collaboration. That assumption was completely wrong. Long before the public noticed any tension, the two men had already become adversaries. By the time All in the Family premiered in January 1971, O'Connor was a seasoned actor with decades of experience in theater, film, and television. To him, acting was sacred. Every movement mattered. Every line had purpose. Acting was never activism. It was interpretation. Rob Reiner came from an entirely different mindset. Younger, politically outspoken, and shaped by the social upheaval of the late 1960s, Reiner saw All in the Family as more than entertainment. To him, it was a cultural statement. His character, Michael "Meathead" Stivic, wasn't just Archie Bunker's son-in-law. He was designed as Archie's ideological opposite. The real fracture happened early. During rehearsals, O'Connor noticed behavior that immediately unsettled him. Reiner didn't wait for direction. He interrupted table reads. He questioned line deliveries. To O'Connor, this wasn't collaboration, it was confrontation. Rehearsals frequently stalled as Reiner argued the moral framing of scenes, pushing for Archie to be clearly wrong instead of complex or human. O'Connor felt Reiner wasn't improving the script. He was policing it. More than once, O'Connor stopped rehearsals entirely, fixed Reiner with a stare, and refused to continue until the room settled. The message was clear. You do not run this set. From that moment on, something hardened between them. Later, O'Connor summed it up simply. Reiner didn't behave like a fellow actor. He behaved like a judge. And in O'Connor's mind, that crossed a line he never forgave. So how long was the tension ongoing between the two men? Stay tuned to find out. Number 3. When the set became a battleground. As All in the Family exploded into the most watched sitcom in America, Norman Lear began to realize that the tension between Caroll O'Connor and Rob Reiner wasn't fading. It was getting worse. Lear later admitted that the ideological conflict driving the show didn't stay on the page. It followed the actors onto the soundstage, into rehearsals, and into moments where production itself slowed to a crawl. Jean Stapleton, who played Edith Bunker, quietly acknowledged how uncomfortable the atmosphere could become. She noticed O'Connor's subtle but deliberate reactions whenever Reiner spoke out of turn, leaning back, folding his arms, and avoiding eye contact. These weren't accidents. They were acts of resistance. O'Connor was freezing Reiner out, openly and deliberately. Reiner, however, refused to retreat. He regularly challenged scenes he felt softened Archie's bigotry too much. In script discussions, he pushed the idea that Archie had to be exposed, corrected, and clearly defeated every time. O'Connor pushed back just as hard. He believed Archie's power came from being recognizable, not ridiculed. When Reiner questioned O'Connor's delivery yet again, O'Connor stopped a run-through mid-scene. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He simply looked toward Lear and said nothing. The silence stretched. The cameras rolled. Crew members froze. Lear later admitted that moment forced him to step in. O'Connor had drawn a line without speaking a word. O'Connor felt boxed in by Reiner's constant ideological pressure. Where Reiner saw moral clarity, O'Connor felt personal judgment. To him, Reiner wasn't acting with him, he was acting against him. That belief never faded. Years later, O'Connor summed it up bluntly. Rob always thought he was smarter than everyone else. To O'Connor, that was Reiner's core flaw. He didn't respect the craft. He used it as a weapon. The hostility deepened as Reiner received growing praise in the press. Critics hailed Michael Stivic as the voice of reason and painted Archie as an obstacle to progress. O'Connor read those reviews. He absorbed them. To him, Reiner wasn't just winning scenes. He was winning culturally, at the cost of Archie's humanity. All in the Family became legendary because the conflict was real. The clashes felt dangerous because they were. The anger carried weight because it wasn't written. It was lived. The audience laughed. The network celebrated. And two men walked onto the same set every day knowing they despised each other. When the cameras finally stopped, the question wasn't whether the conflict was real. It was whether it could exist without an audience. Let's find out what happened next. Number 2. After the cameras stopped rolling. When All in the Family officially ended in 1979, many people inside CBS quietly assumed the hostility between Caroll O'Connor and Rob Reiner would fade with time and distance. It didn't. It simply lost its audience. O'Connor moved straight into Archie Bunker's place, carrying the character forward, while leaving Reiner behind. Off-camera, he appeared noticeably lighter and more relaxed, something Gene Stapleton later remarked on in private. But whenever Reiner's name came up, O'Connor's tone hardened instantly. The resentment hadn't disappeared. It had settled in. By the early 1980s, the two men existed in completely separate Hollywood worlds. O'Connor focused on dramatic television and eventually reshaped his public image with In the Heat of the Night in 1988. Reiner, meanwhile, reinvented himself behind the camera, earning widespread respect as a director with This Is Spinal Tap in 1984 and Stand By Me in 1986. Their careers no longer intersected, but the bitterness remained, at least for O'Connor. In interviews throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he refused to soften his stance. He rejected the idea that their feud was exaggerated or misunderstood, brushing off the phrase creative differences as a way of minimizing what he felt was years of personal disrespect. Reiner, on the other hand, stayed almost completely silent. He never publicly challenged O'Connor's account. He never sought reconciliation. People close to Reiner described the silence as intentional. He had moved on, both professionally and emotionally. The two men never shared a stage again. They never publicly acknowledged each other's success. The conflict didn't resolve or explode. It simply froze in place, unchanged, unresolved, and waiting for nothing. How did silence speak more than words between the two men? Stay tuned to find out. Number 1. A silence that spoke volumes. When Caroll O'Connor died on June 21, 2001, at the age of 76, Hollywood paused.
Now the world is saying goodbye to Caroll O'Connor. The television stage and screen star died yesterday at the age of 76.
Hollywood is saddened by the loss of Caroll O'Connor. Now celebrities react to the news and remember.
Networks replayed All in the Family. Critics revisited the legacy of Archie Bunker. Former colleagues spoke about O'Connor's discipline, intelligence, and deep moral seriousness. The industry honored him as a towering figure in television history. One voice, however, stood out for what it did not say. Rob Reiner did not step forward with any public gesture of reconciliation. There was no attempt to soften the past, no reflection on their turbulent years together, beyond acknowledging O'Connor's importance to the medium. What Reiner offered was professional respect and nothing more. That restraint mattered. Reiner did not rewrite history, and he did not challenge O'Connor's long-standing hostility. He allowed O'Connor's words to remain exactly as they were, harsh, final, and unresolved. By the time of his death, O'Connor had already endured devastating personal loss, most notably the death of his son Hugh in 1995. That tragedy reshaped his public life, pushing him toward advocacy and compassion. Yet even then, he never revisited his feelings toward Reiner. The silence between them had hardened into permanence. Reiner moved forward, continuing his career and rarely speaking about O'Connor again. And O'Connor left behind a record that needed no clarification. He had said what he meant while he was alive, and never took it back. In the end, the most unsettling truth is this: some conflicts don't resolve. They simply outlive the people who carried them. And that silence became the final word. But before his demise and his hatred for Rob Reiner, who was Caroll O'Connor, and how did he rise to fame? Keep watching to find out. The early life and rise of Caroll O'Connor. Caroll O'Connor, the eldest of three sons, was born on August 2nd, 1924 in Manhattan, New York, to Edward Joseph O'Connor, a lawyer, and Elise Patricia O'Connor, a teacher. Both of his brothers pursued medicine. Hugh, who tragically died in a motorcycle accident in 1961, and Robert, a psychiatrist based in New York City. O'Connor spent much of his youth in Elmhurst and Forest Hills, Queens, where he grew up surrounded by a disciplined and academically oriented family environment. He graduated from Newtown High School in Elmhurst and, in 1941, enrolled at Wake Forest University in North Carolina. However, his studies were interrupted when the United States entered World War II. Rejected by the United States Navy, he briefly enrolled at the United States Merchant Marine Academy before leaving and serving as a merchant seaman during the war. After the conflict, O'Connor attended the University of Montana, where he worked as an editor for the Montana Kaimin, the university's student newspaper. In 1949, he resigned his editorial position in protest after the campus administration confiscated and destroyed an issue that depicted the Montana Board of Education as rats gnawing at a bag of university funds. While at the University of Montana, he also joined the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity and performed in student theater productions despite not taking formal drama courses. During this period, O'Connor met Nancy Fields, who would become his wife. She was working as a makeup artist and lighting technician for a student production of Our Town. O'Connor later left the University of Montana to help his younger brother Hugh gain admission to medical school in Ireland. Caroll completed his undergraduate studies at University College Dublin, focusing on Irish history and English literature, graduating in 1952 before beginning his acting career. Nancy Fields joined him in Dublin, having graduated in 1951 with degrees in drama and English from the University of Montana. The couple married in Dublin on 28 July 1951. In 1956, O'Connor returned to the University of Montana to earn a master's degree in speech. After acting in theater productions in both Dublin and New York throughout the 1950s, he achieved a breakthrough when director Burgess Meredith, assisted by John Aston, cast him in a featured role in the Broadway adaptation of James Joyce's Ulysses. O'Connor and Meredith maintained a lifelong friendship, cementing a formative professional relationship. O'Connor made his television acting debut in 1960 on 2 episodes of Sunday Showcase. These roles led to guest appearances on a wide range of shows, including The Americans, The 11th Hour, Bonanza, The Fugitive, The Wild Wild West, Armstrong Circle Theater, The Outer Limits, The Great Adventure, The Man from UN Seal, Dr. Kildare, I Spy, That Girl, Premiere, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and Insight, among many others. He also guest-starred as Joseph Varsh in Season 1, Episode 18 of Mission Impossible, titled The Trial. O'Connor was considered for major roles such as the skipper on Gilligan's Island and Dr. Smith in Lost in Space. He even became the visual inspiration for Batman villain Rupert Thorne, a character introduced during the height of All in the Family's success in Detective Comics number 469, published in May 1976 by DC Comics. Later in his career, O'Connor appeared in several episodes of Mad About You as Gus Stemple, the father of Helen Hunt's character, further demonstrating his enduring presence and versatility in television. So, what tragedies plagued Caroll O'Connor's life? Let's find out. Personal triumphs and tragedies. In 1962, while filming Cleopatra in Rome, Caroll O'Connor and his wife Nancy Fields O'Connor adopted a 6-day-old boy, naming him Hugh after O'Connor's brother, who had died the year before. Hugh later became part of O'Connor's professional life, working at age 17 as a courier on the set of Archie Bunker's Place. O'Connor even created the role of Officer Lonnie Jameson on In the Heat of the Night specifically for his son, blending family and career in meaningful ways. O'Connor was also a devout Catholic who regularly attended Mass, grounding himself in faith throughout his life. In 1989, he was admitted to the hospital for heart bypass surgery and quit a smoking habit he had maintained for 30 years, demonstrating a commitment to his health and longevity. Tragedy struck on March 28, 1995, when Hugh died by self-harm after a long struggle with substance addiction.
Caroll O'Connor. His 32-year-old son Hugh committed last night after a long run of addiction. Hugh O'Connor played a part in his father's series, but his life was destroyed by
The loss profoundly shaped O'Connor's later years. He channeled his grief into advocacy, appearing in public service announcements for the Partnership for a Free America, and working tirelessly to raise awareness about the dangers of substance addiction. He also lobbied California to pass the Dealer Civil Liability Act, allowing family members of an addicted person or anyone harmed by a substance dealer's actions to sue for reimbursement of medical and rehabilitation costs, among other damages. The law, also called the Hugh O'Connor Memorial Law, took effect in 1997 and drew from the 1992 Model Dealer Liability Act, now passed in 17 states and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Cases under the law have been brought in California, Illinois, Utah, and other states. O'Connor's grief also became a personal crusade against the man who had sold substances to Hugh. He publicly called Harry Perzigian a partner in assassination and a sleazeball, prompting a defamation lawsuit from Perzigian. In 1997, a California jury ruled in O'Connor's favor. On CNN's Larry King Live, he admitted the pain of losing his son could never be erased, saying, "I can't forget it. There isn't a day that I don't think of him and want him back and miss him, and I'll feel that way until I'm not here anymore." In the late 1990s, O'Connor pursued a personal passion, automotive restoration. He established Caroll O'Connor Classics in Newbury Park, California, which housed many of his personal vehicles and those once owned by his late son. His collection included a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow purchased from William Harrah, a Maserati 3500 GT, and a Dodge Challenger with a 440 cubic inch V8 that he drove during All in the Family production. O'Connor and Nancy also gave back to education. In 1997, they donated $1 million to the University of Montana to match a challenge grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The university named a Regional Studies and Public Policy Institute, the O'Connor Center for the Rocky Mountain West. Following the donation, O'Connor taught screenwriting at the university, sharing his professional knowledge with a new generation. In 1998, O'Connor underwent a second surgery to clear a blockage in a carotid artery, reducing his risk of stroke and demonstrating his continued commitment to living fully despite personal loss and physical challenges. Through triumphs, tragedies, and relentless dedication to both craft and family, O'Connor's life remained a testament to resilience, principle, and an unwavering sense of purpose. While we have seen the life of Caroll O'Connor, let us get to know about the life of the man he hated, Rob Reiner. The early life and career of Rob Reiner. Robert Reiner was born into a Jewish family in the Bronx, New York City, on March 6, 1947. His parents were the actors Estelle and Carl Reiner. He grew up alongside his siblings, Annie Reiner, a poet, playwright, and author, and Lucas Reiner, a painter, actor, and director. The family initially lived on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx, later moving to 48 Bonnie Meadow Road in New Rochelle, New York. Reiner had no middle name, explaining, "My mother didn't have a middle name, my father didn't have one, so they didn't give me one." Carl Reiner, a lifelong baseball fan, took young Rob to his first Major League Baseball game in 1951, a doubleheader at Yankee Stadium. It was Mickey Mantle's first year in the majors and Joe DiMaggio's last, he recalled. "I was 4 years old, and I stayed through both games. I was fascinated. I was hooked at that point." The family eventually moved to Los Angeles, where Reiner made his television acting debut at age 14 on the series Manhunt. In the early 1960s, he trained and apprenticed at the Bucks County Playhouse in New Hope, Pennsylvania. He attended Beverly Hills High School and later studied at the UCLA Film School from 1964 to 1966, though he did not graduate with a degree. In the late 1960s, Reiner acted in small roles on several popular television shows, including Batman, That Girl, The Andy Griffith Show, Room 222, Gomer Pyle USMC, and The Beverly Hillbillies. At 19, he performed in an improv group with actor Larry Bishop, opening for singer Carmen McRae at the Hungry Eye Club in San Francisco. Reiner began his television writing career on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in 1968 and 1969, collaborating with Steve Martin and Carl Gottlieb. In 1969, he directed a one-act play at the Oxford Theater in Los Angeles and starred in another, both written by his friend Philip Mishkin. During this period, he also appeared in several films, including some directed by his father, such as Where's Papa? In 1970. That same year, Reiner and Jeff Bridges acted in the school desegregation drama Halls of Anger in 1970, produced by United Artists. Also in 1970, he starred in and wrote for the series Headmaster, reuniting professionally with Andy Griffith. Headmaster was the first of 5 TV comedies Reiner created with Mishkin, followed by The Super in 1972, Free Country in 1978, and Morton and Hayes in 1991, all of which were canceled after one season. In the 1980s, Reiner transitioned to directing, establishing himself with multiple successful films across genres. He frequently collaborated with film editor Robert Layton, who also worked with Christopher Guest on several projects. Reiner directed many critically and commercially successful films through his company, Castle Rock Entertainment. Highlights include the romantic comedy When Harry Met Sally in 1989, widely regarded as one of the best in its genre. The thriller Misery in 1990, adapted from Stephen King's novel and earning Kathy Bates the Academy Award for Best Actress, and A Few Good Men in 1992, a military courtroom drama that became his most commercially successful film and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. He also directed The American President in 1995 and Ghosts of Mississippi in 1996, showcasing his range in political romance and courtroom drama. Throughout his career, Reiner continued acting in supporting roles in both film and television. Notable appearances include Throw Mama from the Train in 1987, Sleepless in Seattle in 1993, Bullets Over Broadway in 1994, and The First Wives Club in 1996, demonstrating his enduring versatility as both an actor and filmmaker. From childhood fame to personal life, how did Reiner build a family? Keep watching to find out. Family, faith, and philanthropy. Rob Reiner married actress and director Penny Marshall in 1971. Through that marriage, he adopted Marshall's daughter, actress Tracy Reiner, from her previous marriage to Michael Henry. The couple divorced in 1981, ending a decade-long union. While directing When Harry Met Sally, Reiner met photographer Michelle Singer. Their meeting not only influenced his decision to change the film's ending, but also led to their marriage in 1989. Together, they had 3 children, sons Jake and Nick, and daughter Romy. Their eldest, Jake, has worked in filmmaking and served as a news reporter in Houston, Texas. Reiner shared his love of baseball with Jake, attending games nationwide and maintaining season tickets for Dodger Stadium since the 1960s. Jake even ran a Dodgers podcast around 2023. Their second son, Nick, struggled with substance abuse from a young age, entering rehab for the first time at 14 and cycling in and out of treatment over the years. Their youngest, Romy, became a filmmaker herself and maintained a very close relationship with both parents. In addition to family life, Reiner and Singer became active philanthropists. In 1997, they founded the I Am Your Child Foundation, and in 2004, they established Parents Action for Children, a nonprofit dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of early childhood development. The organization produces celebrity-hosted educational videos for parents, while also advancing public policy through advocacy and education. Reiner's personal beliefs have evolved over time. Though raised in a Jewish household, his family was not particularly observant, and he had a bar mitzvah ceremony. His father, Caroll Reiner, became an atheist in response to Hitler and the Holocaust, influencing Rob's perspective. On the January 13, 2012 episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, Reiner identified as an atheist, though he expressed sympathy for Buddhist ideas. In a September 2025 interview with Piers Morgan, he reflected on his spiritual philosophy. "I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in do unto others, and I believe in forgiveness." These beliefs shaped both his personal life and his philanthropic efforts, reflecting a commitment to compassion and moral responsibility. What tragedy struck Rob Reiner? Let's find out. Tragedy strikes. The deaths of Rob and Michelle Reiner. On December 14, 2025, Rob Reiner, 78, and his wife, Michelle, 70, were found dead in their Brentwood, Los Angeles, home from sharp force injuries.
Breaking overnight, police are investigating now the shocking deaths of legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle.
The couple's youngest child, Romy, had gone to the house with her roommate after their massage therapist noted they had missed an appointment. Unaware that her mother was at home, Romy was later informed of Michelle's death. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded to a medical aid call at 3:38 p.m. PST. Later that same day, Los Angeles police arrested the Reiner's son, Nick, near the University of Southern California, on suspicion of assassination. Nick had been living with his parents at the time. Rob and Nick had attended a Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien the previous evening, during which the two reportedly argued. Sources at the party, who wished to remain anonymous, told the New York Times that the confrontation began after Rob told Nick his behavior was inappropriate. Guests reportedly felt uneasy due to Nick's disruptive actions. On December 16th, Nick was charged with 2 counts of first-degree assassination with a special circumstance of multiple assassinations. Rob and Michelle's other 2 children, Jake and Romy, released a joint statement on December 17th, describing their parents as their best friends. Close friends and collaborators, including Albert Brooks, Billy Crystal, Larry David, Martin Short, Barry Levinson, Mark Shaman, and Alan Zweibel, also issued a joint statement. There is no other director who has his range. He was always at the top of his game. He charmed audiences. They trusted him. They added, Michelle and Rob Reiner devoted a great deal of their lives for the betterment of our fellow citizens. They were a special force together, dynamic, unselfish, and inspiring. We were their friends, and we will miss them forever. Former U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton and Joe Biden released statements memorializing Reiner and offering condolences to the family. The Reiners were cremated at Mount Sinai Memorial Park, with their remains entrusted to their son Jake for private disposition. Funeral plans were initially kept private. On December 22nd, Jake and Romy issued a statement confirming that they were planning a public memorial service and would release details at a later date, allowing friends, family, and fans to honor their legacy. What are your thoughts about Caroll O'Connor's hatred for Rob Reiner? Let us know in the comments section below. Caroll O'Connor and Rob Reiner's story proves that even the most legendary collaborations can hide deep personal conflicts behind the cameras. If uncovering the truth about their decades-long feud surprised you or changed the way you see All in the Family, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click the next video for more shocking stories and untold truths.